All right. So yeah, so number three is on implementation. We will recap what the full carbon project cycle is, and then we discuss MRV, revenue mechanics, Pakistan's policy fee structure, what project development actually involves, because knowing the opportunity is one thing, but knowing how to execute on it is something else entirely. And then finally, we open the floor to your questions. We answer them directly. Some of you have already submitted the questions during sign up, so we'll get to those. And of course, anything new that you want to ask us. So maybe we can dive right in. So part one is on Pakistan's positioning in the carbon markets. I'll let Kamar set the stage with some numbers.
Sure. Thanks, Minha. So let me start with a very basic question. So why Pakistan and why are we talking about carbon credits in context of Pakistan specifically? So the answer lies in the numbers. So I would like to explain these properly because once you understand them, the opportunity becomes very clear. Can we go to the next slide? So yeah, so the first one, 521 million tons of CO2 equivalent emissions. So this is Pakistan's official greenhouse gas emissions figure for 2021, which is taken from Pakistan's first BTR report submitted to UNFCCC. To put that in perspective, that is a significant emission base, and it comes from a country that contributes very little to historical global emissions. So there is a lot of mitigation potential here. But in 2024, that numbers have gone up to 585 million tons, and emissions are growing mostly because the economy is growing and energy demand is rising, and a lot of that is still being met by the fossil fuels. And if you look at the major sectors which contribute to these emissions, Apollo is at the top, which contributes around 46.75%. So nearly half of the Pakistan's emission come from this sector. That means farming, livestock, land management, and forests. In most countries, this sector is small, but in case of Pakistan, it is the single largest source of emissions. That matters because these are exactly the sectors where carbon credit projects are most viable. If you look at the Pakistan's commitment in its NDCs, Pakistan has committed to cut 50% of its projected 2035 emissions. And critically, Pakistan has said that it will use the international carbon markets, especially Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, to help pay for this. And total investment needed in this case will be 565 billion by 2035. So the carbon finance is not optional here. It is central to how Pakistan plans to meet these targets. So can we go to the next slide? So before we talk about the 10 opportunities, I want to, talk about the carbon market itself. Because if you don't understand the market you are selling into, you can make wrong decisions about which projects are worth pursuing. So the voluntary carbon market has gone through a difficult few years. There was a wave of media investigations and scrutiny starting around 2022 and 23 that raised some serious question about whether certain credits were actually doing what they claimed. So some projects that were sold as protecting forests were found to be exaggerated, and some renewable energy credits were questioned on whether they actually needed the carbon money to happen at all. So the result is that market did not actually collapse, but it split, and it is now divided into two very different markets operating side by side. So the first one is the low quality credits trading at $1 to $5 per ton. So these are things like generic solar and wind energy projects or protection projects with weak monitoring. The problem with these is that the industry what calls it as an additionality. So additionality simply means would this project have happened anyway without the carbon money? And if solar plants was going to be built because it was profitable on its own, then the carbon credit for it is not really adding anything extra to the climate effort. So buyers increasingly understand this, and they are now walking away from these kind of credits. The second market is the high integrity credits, which is currently trading at $12 to $30 per ton and above. So these are the credits where emission reduction is genuinely additional, well monitored, and backed by the strong data. mangrove restoration, agroforestry, methane carbon capture projects, these come in this kind of category. So these command significantly high prices and have much stronger buyer demand. Uh, can you please go to the next slide? Yeah, so now Milana will walk you through the opportunities.
Thanks, Kamar. So now that you've got the context, Pakistan's emission profile is large, dominated by sectors that are ripe for carbon projects, and the government has put carbon markets front and center in its climate strategy. The global market is rewarding high integrity credit. So, what are the specific opportunities? Let's walk you through all 10. So here they are, the 10 opportunities, all grounded in Pakistan's emissions data project. There's project precedent and what the market will actually pay in 2026. So let me give you a quick lay of the land before we go deeper. The first five, landfill methane capture, blue carbon through mangrove restoration, off-grid solar, battery storage, and livestock biogas. Each of these targets a different part of Pakistan's emission profile, from waste coastlines to rural energy to livestock. And then the next five are brick kiln modernization, electric buses, agroforestry and ARR, biochar from crop residues, and alternate wetting and drying in rice field paddies. So some of these are established and some are genuine frontier opportunities. And we're not going to pretend that all are equal because they're not. They vary in readiness, in price potential, in complexity, and that's the whole point. We want to give you the full picture so you can decide where your time and your capital can make the most sense. So let's go through them one by one. So the first one is landfill methane capture and waste packages. Let's talk about the scale first, right? So Pakistan generates roughly 49.6 million tons of solid waste per year. Karachi alone is 16,500 tons per day. Lahore is 7,600. So that waste is sitting in open dumps and it produces methane, which is a gas that is 28 times more potent than carbon dioxide over 100 years. So what you do is you capture that methane, you destroy it or you convert it to energy, and then you get the credits for it, which sits in the $6 to $15 per ton range. And there's a strong buyer demand tied to global methane reduction commitments for that. So the really important signal here is that the Pakistan's climate ministry has issued the first Article 6 letter of intent, and it was issued to Mahmood Bhuti dump site project in Lahore. That project covers landfill gas, leachate treatment, afforestation, and solar. This is the template that the government and buyers want to see. So there's your like proof of concept. But, and this is a big but, that legacy open dumps have no historic metering. Your baseline needs to be well documented. It has to be very conservative. Projects with weak baselines do and will face issuance risk and price discounts accordingly. So MRV here is high effort. It's non-negotiable if you want to get paid properly. Number two is blue carbon. So mangrove restoration in Sindh is a precedent in Pakistan. And Pakistan does have, something generally special, which is globally significant arid climate mangroves in the Sindh Indus Delta. And Delta Blue Carbon's phase one is already Vera registered, and it is across 350,000 hectares, and it fetches a high price because it's nature-based removal, and nature-based removal credits trade at $12 to $30 per ton or more. Buyers value the carbon permanence, they value biodiversity co-benefits, they value community outcomes alongside the emission reductions. So it's a complete impact story. But again, the non-negotiables here, they're serious, and you need, these as like built into the project. So the first is clear land tenure, then transparent community benefit sharing through FPEC. FPEC is free, prior, and informed consent of the landowners. You have to keep buffer contributions for permanence risk. You need remote sensing, MRV, like field plus the digital everything. You need the verification plots. And a project that shortcuts any of these will not get like premium pricing that it can. Um, all right. So the scrutiny for blue carbon is intense right now, but that's actually good news. If you do it right, it means that the project that meets the standards are protected from, the race to the bottom. I'll invite Cover to do the next five, maybe.
Sure. Thanks, Minha. So I'll take you through the next ones. The first is the off-grid solar. So solar is a category where I think a lot of people assume that it is an obvious choice for carbon credits. And Pakistan has seen massive solar adoption and net metering capacity has grown rapidly. So surely you can generate carbon credits for all that clean energy. So that's the question. The honest answer is it is more complicated than that. The core requirement for any carbon credit is something called additionality. So in case of solar, it means your project must demonstrate that emission reductions would not have happened without the carbon finance. So if someone was going to install the solar anyway because electricity tariffs are high and panel prices have dropped, so it is very difficult to argue that the carbon money is what made it happen. That said, there is a genuine window for off-grid solar. So think of diesel generators running in factories or in remote industrial sites or in areas where there is no grid connection at all. So in those situations, the baseline is diesel, which is expensive, and diesel is high emission. And switch to solar generally might not happen without additional support. So that could be a creditable project. Next one is the BESS, battery energy storage system. So this is a category that is still developing in the carbon markets. In this case, you store renewable energy when it is available and release it when the grid needs it, which reduces the need to fire up fossil fuel backup plants. The carbon value comes from displacing those fossil fuel peaker plants. The challenge in this category is that the carbon accounting methodology for this is complex. And how do you measure exactly how much fossil fuel dispatch was avoided? That requires grid level data and conservative accounting assumption. But the good news is Pakistan's government is actively developing a national best deployment roadmap, so which means the policy framework is moving in the right direction. Next up is livestock biogas. So this is a category with enormous potential in Pakistan. If you look at the numbers, Pakistan has roughly 60 million cattle, 48 million buffaloes, and close to 90 million goats. So that is one of the largest livestock populations in the world. And all of those animals produce manure, which when we left in open fields or pits, it releases methane directly into the atmosphere. So the biogas digesters that capture that manure and allow it to decompose in a controlled environment and produce biogas that can be used for cooking or either it can be used for generating electricity. The methane that would have escaped is instead captured and used. So the carbon credits are generated from the difference between what would have happened, which is methane escaping, and what actually happened, which is methane captured and used. The credits in this category sit in the $6 to $15 range and have strong buyer demand. But the challenge is scale in this category. Uh, Pakistan's livestock sector is dominated by smallholder farmers with small herds. So to make a creditable project, you need a programmatic approach, which will require you to aggregate large number of individual farmers under a single monitoring framework. So yeah. Can we go to the next show? Okay. So next one is brick kiln modernization. So Pakistan's brick kiln sector is one of the more interesting carbon credit cases because it has a nuance that could be easily missed. So Punjab has pushed very hard for zigzag kiln conversion and reports roughly 95% adoption across 11,000 inspected kilns. Zigzag is a better combustion design and is more fuel efficient and produces less pollution per brick, which is so far so good. But the challenge is if the government has mandated this conversion and is enforcing it, then the conversion was going to happen regardless of the carbon money. So that means you cannot claim additionality for basic zigzag conversion in areas where it is now either standard practice or legally required. So the creditable window shifts to incremental interventions that go beyond regulatory baseline. Fuel switching away from coal to cleaner fuels, advanced combustion control systems with measurable performance, and the conversion cost of the kiln is an important factor. And it typically costs around 2.5 to 3 million per kiln. So that financing gap where kilns cannot afford to convert without the external support is exactly where carbon revenue makes the additionality argument. Next one is the electric bus fleets. So this is a category where government procurement is actually moving quite fast, and Sindh has cabinet approval for around 8,000 electric buses for Karachi. Islamabad received 146 electric buses for the feeder routes, and Punjab has also announced a major deployments across cities. So the procurement pipeline is real, and the carbon credit logic is also very clear. In this case, you replace diesel buses with the electric ones and you measure the fuel savings on each route. So you can verify it with the GPS data and the ticketing data, and the difference between the diesel emissions that would have occurred and the actual electricity consumptions gives you your verified emission reductions. Yeah, so back to Mina for the last three opportunities.
All right, thank you. Moving on to number 8, smallholder agroforestry and ARR. ARR is afforestation, reforestation, and revegetation. This one sits at the intersection of climate policy and rural livelihoods. Pakistan's NDC 3.0 references large-scale tree planting and landscape restoration as well. So that policy direction creates a demand for ARR carbon projects. And what makes it work is three things, again, non-negotiable: land tenure clarity, genuine farmer consent through FPEC, which was free prior informed consent, and hybrid MRV. Um, I say hybrid because satellite data combined with field verification plots is necessary. And this is what earns you the premium pricing. If you miss any of them, you won't get enough credits, or worse, your project doesn't get registered at all. Here, I also want to give you a real example. Resources Future is developing an ARR project in Mirpur Khas districts in Sindh. It's called Savak project, and we're using mango and chiku orchard systems on agricultural land. So we know this one by heart, and we're always looking out for people, such as yourself in the audience, maybe who could be doing something similar here. Opportunities 9 and 10, and I think these are the most exciting ones. So biochar, starting with biochar, biochar is a new frontier. But in January 2025, Google signed a deal to buy 100,000 carbon credits from Varaha Earth in India. And at the time, it was the largest transaction of its kind for industrial biochar. And the thing is, there's no equivalent project in Pakistan yet, of course. So this is a first mover opportunity. What is biochar? Biochar is crop residue that is heated under low oxygen conditions, and the process is called pyrolysis. The resulting material stores carbon in soil for decades or even centuries, and you get carbon credits for storing carbon away, essentially. And carbon markets treat it as a durable removal solution. And Pakistan, as you know, burns like enormous quantities of crop residue in Punjab and in Sindh every year. So biochar converts that waste into soil amendment. Then we have alternate wetting and drying, AWD. And this one has live Pakistan evidence for sure. So in December 2025, Gold Standard issued 46,714 credits under the first ever rice AWD methodology. And I think around 2,000 farmers are a part of this project. And how does this one work is, so flooded rice paddies produce methane. Again, methane is a very potent gas, and through AWD, periodically, you drain out the paddy and interrupt the methane production while maintaining the crop yield. So the farmer doesn't lose anything, and the credits can generate that it can generate can offer a good pricing with strong co-benefit narratives. All right. So we've covered all the 10 opportunities. Now comes the part that separates the theory from the lectures and onto the practical. First up, I want you to look at what the full project cycle actually looks like because the timelines matter and you want to see who scrutinizes your project and when. So this is a demonstration of the entire project cycle. It's roughly the same for each kind of project. You start with a project eligibility assessment, that is your feasibility stage. You ask, can this project generate credits at all? Under which methodology? Is it eligible? Then you come to the preliminary review by the certification standard, that is typically 1 to 2 months. They check whether your project concept actually fits their framework. Next is the baseline study, stakeholder consultation, drafting the PDD, and the emissions calculation. Then comes the validation audit. So an accredited VVB is validation and verification body, comes in, reviews everything, and conducts site visit. And then you have a registration to the certification standard. After that, you enter the monitoring phase. This is the continuous and based on your MRV framework. Typically, these are annual monitoring cycles, but again, for NBS, this can vary. This can be up to like 2 years at a time. Then verification audit, and then finally issuance of carbon credits. So 1 to 2 months after successful verification. So from concept to first credit issuance, you're looking at roughly 2 years minimum, depending on the project type. But here, if there's one thing I want you to take away from this entire webinar is the MRV part. And I would let Kamer demonstrate what this means in the carbon world in the next slides.
Sure, Mina. So MRV is basically stands for monitoring, reporting, and verification. So it sounds technical and it sounds a lot of paperwork, but I want to reframe how you think about it. So the carbon credit is essentially a financial instrument. So when you sell it, the buyer is trusting that the emission reductions you claimed actually happened. So MRV is the system that proves it happened. So without a credible MRV system, you do not have a credible product. So it is that simple. And it basically works in the 5 major steps, and I'll walk you through one by one. So the step one is baseline. So before your project starts, you need to define what the emissions would have been without it and what would have happened if you had done nothing. So this baseline is what your credits are measured against, and it needs to be conservative, meaning you should not overestimate what the baseline emissions would have been because that would inflate your credits number and make them vulnerable to challenge. The step two is monitoring. So once your project is running, you track what is actually happening on ground. So how much methane is being captured, how many trees are alive and growing, how much diesel is being displaced. So this is where the physical measurement systems come in: gas meters, satellite imagery, GPS tracking data. So the quality of your monitoring data is the quality of your credits. And the third step is reporting. So you compile all of that monitoring data into a structured project report that follows the methodology of whichever carbon standard you are registered under. So it could be Vera, Gold, or any other standard. And the report documents what happened, what you measured, and what emission reductions you are claiming. The step four is verification. So once you have developed your report, an independent third party auditor, which is called VBB, validation and verification body, it reviews your report, it checks your data, and visits the project site. And they confirm whether your claimed emission reductions are supported by the evidence. So if there are gaps or inconsistencies, they raise the they what which we call as corrective action request, so which you have to address before any credits can be issued. And the final step is the issuance of credits. So once the verification bar is complete and accepted, the registry issues credits equal to the verified emission reductions. So those credits are now on the registry and they have a unique identifier, and they can be sold or transferred to a buyer who then retires them against their climate commitments. So the most important thing is the timing. So we design your MRV system before your first piece of equipment goes in the ground, not after, not as an afterthought. So projects those treat MRV as an end stage administrative task consistently run into problems. It could be delayed issuance or reduced credit volumes or maybe price discounts. So it should be designed at the very start of the project. Can we go to the next slide, Minha? Yeah. So the next is revenue modeling. This is where I see the biggest gap between the expectation and reality when people first look at the carbon projects. The common mistake is you look at a global average carbon price, something like $6 to $7 per ton, and now you multiply it by your projected emission reductions, and you call that as your revenue. So that calculation can be wrong, and it will give you a misleading picture. What you actually need to model is first use the right price band for your specific credit category. Like nature-based removals trade at a completely different price than the landfill methane, which trades differently from the generic renewable energy. So use the band for your project type. The second is like you have to account for country-specific policy deductions. In case of Pakistan, it's like 5% for credits withheld at source, 1% admin fee on gross revenues, and 12% corresponding adjustment fee on net revenues if you are doing Article 6 authorized transfers. Yeah, so the third one is you have to account for your own project cost as well. The VVB charges fees for their audit work, and the registry charges fee for registration and credit issuance, your own project development, feasibility work, and the documentation. So all of those step cost money. And fourth is your contracting strategy upfront. So are you selling on the spot market, which means you produce the credit and then find a buyer, or either you are pursuing a forward offtake agreement, like where buyer commits to purchase your credits in advance at an agreed price. So the forward contracts give you price certainty, and it can often be used, to access project financing. So when you model all of that properly, you know whether the project is going to work or not, and you know what scale it needs to reach to be commercially viable. Can we, yeah, next slide. Okay, so this is the current fee structure, and it is very essential to understand, especially if you're thinking about developing a carbon project in Pakistan. So this is the part that most people miss when they first start looking at the numbers. Like Pakistan has introduced a fee structure that applies when a carbon credit from Pakistan is sold internationally with the government approval, which we call as Article 6 authorized transfer. And these fees, these economics change the economics significantly. So the first one is the 5% credit reservation at source. So before you even sell a single credit, 5% is withheld upfront and goes towards the Pakistan national commitments. And you never see those credits and they are taken off top. And the next one is the 1% administrative fee on gross revenues. So whatever you earn from selling your credits, 1% goes to the government administration. So, and this is applied to your gross revenue before any other deductions. And the third one is 12% corresponding adjustment fee. So 12% of your net revenues go to CAF, and this is split 50-50 between the provincial government and the National Climate Fund. So in practice, this means like if you see a carbon credit trading at $15 per ton in the global market, that is not what you take home. So by the time you account for all these like 5%, 1%, and 12% cap on the net revenues, your actual take home is lower. And that is before you account for your own project development cost, verification fee, and registry fee. But the point here is not to scare anyone away. The point is to plan correctly and always model your revenue net of these deductions. And project that look maybe viable on gross prices often look different when you run the actual numbers. Yeah, can we go to the next slide? Yeah, I think Minha will take this.
Yeah, so I was just glancing over in the section as well, and I know all of you are thinking the capex is really high. We need a consultant. So, that you've seen that the opportunities are clear, the mechanics probably make sense to you, hopefully by now. And now the next question is, who actually in Pakistan helps you get from the concept to the credit issuance? So this is where we come in. Resources Future is here. Resources Future is a carbon market advisory and project development firm We work across Pakistan and in the region, and what we do is we facilitate corporates and project developers through the entire project lifecycle. So from feasibility through up through the registry issuance. So as you can see here as well, these are some of the verticals specifically around carbon markets where we work in carbon project advisory and design. Here we take projects from feasibility through registry registration, and our focus is on projects that can earn credits through proper frameworks and that can be verified as per the carbon standard requirements. MRV design, we build this for our clients from day one. Satellite, field, digital, all sorts of MRV frameworks. We design monitoring architecture that is ready for third-party scrutiny from day one. Then we have market and policy advisory, navigating Pakistan's authorization framework, Article 6, price strategy, buyer engagement. We help you through all of that. And we're not just advising, we're also doing this stuff at company level. We have carbon projects in the pipeline, the Savak ARR project that I just spoke about in Mirpur Khas, where we're doing like mango and chiku orchard. So we're practitioners in this field, we're not just consultants. I just want to quickly get a bit specific about our carbon roadmap service. This is the feasibility stage projects, and it's designed to help your businesses evaluate all of the parameters that we have been discussing so you can make a sound investment decision. So what do we cover? Everything like project eligibility, project baseline, timelines, financial feasibility, risk mitigation, MRV, and any other registry requirements, from the registry where we advise you to get the project registered. And the whole point of this service is that by the time we're done, you know exactly what you're getting into, and you have like a very clear data-driven roadmap, that is ready for scrutiny. And once you have a viable project, this is what the end-to-end journey looks like with us. Methodology selection alignment, project documentation preparation at the actual stakeholder consultation, safeguards, validation and registry coordination, MRV framework preparation, issuance, and post-registration support. So the credit issuance cycle, as I mentioned before as well, it varies by project type, but this framework gives you a clear path from viable project to register carbon project with credits in the market. So with that, I think let's hear from you. The recording of this webinar and the full Q&A report, the questions here and the questions that were shared on the portal, they will all be shared with the attendees. So you'll have everything to refer back to. So these are some of the questions that we saw in the sign-up forms. I thought that these were very pertinent. Maybe Kamal and I can go through these one by one. So the first one was around, the size and scale of projects. Are there any local organization authorized and technically capable for third-party verification? So size and scale, this varies because the price of the carbon credit varies. So it depends on your project. So 20,000 credits being generated by one project will not be priced the same way as maybe 60,000 of another project. So this is why we have the complete feasibility assessment service. So we can check this from day one, whether your project is eligible and how many credits can it generate and what price can it fetch. And we sort of do this financial feasibility for you right in the start, so you know whether your project is worth registering. For the third-party verification, I think SGS is currently being endorsed by Vera, accredited by Vera. So hopefully that one is up and coming. Up until now, the projects that we're looking at have international third-party verifiers, VVBs. Carbon credits in the local market are traded internationally. It is a global market. It is a voluntary market. Anybody can participate if they have like a good enough carbon project. Kamar, do you want to look at the next one? Can grid-connected solar and wind projects be considered viable carbon credit projects?
Yeah, sure. I think now it is quite difficult because the solar sector has been highly subsidized by the government. So it is very hard to establish the additionality in context of that. But in case of off-grid solar, like we have also mentioned during our presentation, so off-grid solar, this is something which can be a credible project.
Thanks. Then we have how can we tap in carbon credits market, being a nonprofit organization providing safe water through sustainable solutions to vulnerable communities. So there are projects on safe drinking water registered on Vera and also I think on Gold Standard by Punjab and Sindh governments. So this is a viable project, and basically what you do here is you check what the baseline emissions are. So for safe drinking water, people must be boiling their water using some sort of fuel. So when you say you're providing sustainable solutions, you check the gap between the emissions, and that qualifies for carbon credits. Then we have how can Pakistani firms participate in carbon market opportunities? What incentives can the government provide for participating in these? Is establishing a regulatory market necessary for having part? No. So you don't actually need the government's involvement for this because, like I said, there is the voluntary carbon market, and in the voluntary carbon market, if you have like verified sources of carbon offsets, there are buyers out there who will be willing to put a price on that, and you can even bilaterally, you don't even need registries in some of the cases to have a bilateral buying and selling sort of market for that. The government is involved in the sense that the Article 6 framework. So what that does is it adds a protection and layer of protection, and basically verifies that your project has actually done the safeguarding, actually has the MRV necessary. But as Kamal explained, there's a fee associated with that. So it's entirely up to you. Obviously, the compliance market where the government is involved obviously does fetch a higher price for carbon credits, but it can be done completely voluntarily as well. I'll hand over the next question to Kamal, maybe the last one from this slide.
Yeah, so I think the next one is what are the carbon credit opportunities for composting poultry manure? So yeah, so actually I think these are two parts of the question. The first one is on the waste management side. So the poultry manure sitting in open storage releases methane and other GHGs, which are potent greenhouse gases. So if you collect that manure and compost it properly in a controlled process, so you significantly reduce those emissions compared to the open storage or unmanaged decomposition. So that emission reductions can be credited under existing waste management methodologies. And the second part is related to the fertilizer replacement side. So in case chemical fertilizer like nitrogen fertilizers, when we are producing those fertilizers, these are quite energy intensive, the process overall. So if you can document that the compost is replacing a measurable quantity of chemical fertilizer on farms, and the avoided emissions from that producing fertilizer can in principle be credited. So, but in this case, the challenge will be the MRV. So the short answer is yes, this is a credible opportunity, particularly on the waste management side. But the fertilizer displacement piece is real, but it requires careful MRV design.
Thanks, Kamar. I think if you give us a couple of minutes, we can go through the chat questions now. Okay, so I'm looking at what was the value of the Google purchase of Biochar from Viraha Earth. So we don't know this for sure. I don't think this was disclosed, but I can tell you, yeah. Do you know the answer to this?
No, I was about to say the same thing because they never disclosed it publicly, but based on the market knowledge, it is something between $100 to $150 per ton, but they never disclosed it officially.
Yes, so biochar carbon credits do go for a very high price above the average because, as I covered as well, it is a permanent carbon removal solution. So I think you can easily look at $100 per ton. What is the approximate cost to the developer for going through the cycle? So this is roughly $150,000, but this includes, if you're doing international VVBs. So the cost of their travel, the cost of their services, the cost of registering your account, your project issuance fee, all of this inclusive comes out to be around $150,000 for the carbon project developer. Without a national level registry, how are double countings being managed? So a national level registry, I think, is underway. This will be for the Article 6 projects, but the validation and verification bodies do their own due diligence to ensure that there is no double counting for your project. Do we need third-party verification? Yes, this is what the VVB is for. We have questions around cement plant conversion. So RDF and BESS and heavy vehicles to electrical vehicles, these are all eligible projects. Um, for the voluntary market, of course, these are eligible. I think you can go to Gold Standard and Para both. For Article 6, I think that is yet to be operationalized. So there was a methodology under CDM, but I think it's no longer active. So I think only time will tell if the methodology will be, activated again for RDF. But BESS also fetches a very good price. So for example, if your solar goes for around maybe $5, BESS could be like $25 per ton. So having a battery energy storage system with your captive solar plant actually makes a huge difference. Do you also engage sector-specific consultants for verification and validation? Um, so verification and validation bodies are actually endorsed by, the carbon registries. That where we, for example, if it's Vera will have its own list of VVBs, gold standard, ICR, and it's up to the project developer. We discuss this with them, and then we go for a VVB that gives us the best code and actually has the sector specific experience in doing the validation or verification exercises. The minimum land area required to get registered as carbon credit seller in agroforestry or permaculture. So again, this comes down to the sequestration potential of uh, the species that you're planting. But we do very rough calculations to do like screening ourselves, and we figured out that 3,000 acres can get you like eligible, like can give you the financial returns, but it doesn't start to make sense until like 5,000 acres. So this is why we talk about aggregation a lot, because when you combine smallholder farmers, the project, the fixed cost remains the same, so your returns, get the margins get a lot bigger. Which government body is responsible for giving carbon credits? So the MOCC is working on the Paris Agreement and Article 6 operationalizing framework. I think the process is you do you submit a request to the provincial government, and then they take it up with the federal government, and then there's a whole Article 6 process to it, where you get issued the letter of intent, then you need a letter of authorization, and after that you get the Article 6 authorized carbon credits. Which VVBs are authorized to work in Pakistan? So all VVBs are authorized to work in Pakistan. if you can bear the cost and if you think the quote makes sense, of course. Where do you sell the carbon credits? So this is very basic stuff. You can sell it bilaterally if you have any buyers in the market. There are carbon exchanges. There are platforms where you can sign up for. There are brokers, even consultants such as ourselves who have like a pool of investors, and you can reach out to them and they can fetch you the best price for your carbon project.
So I think there is a question like, can you share Article 6? So I think this is publicly available document. You can easily find that. It is Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. I think it is very, you can find that out. Otherwise, we can also send that document over to you after this webinar.
EV vehicles can also get registered. Again, it just depends on the scale of your project. There are methodologies, and we're also working on EV registration currently. So that is also completely doable. So apart from rice and livestock, there are projects around sustainable farming, sustainable grazing, soil improvement, even biochar, if you can use biochar, because the number of credits that you earn from biochar is not how much biochar you are producing. It's actually how much biochar you're putting back into the system. So, for example, if you're using it as a soil enhancement with your fertilizer, or if you're using it for construction purposes, so you need to close the loop. So, but I think the biochar projects are getting the best prices currently. If you talk about farmers and agriculture. The cost of getting consultancy from our firm, this actually depends on the type of project and the scale of project, but you can always reach out to us, on our maybe email or WhatsApp. We also are active on LinkedIn. Maybe we can discuss this. So the 10 to 15 dollar biogas plant credits. So we do have market intelligence. We also work with brokers, and we get the market intelligence directly from them as well. So there was a comment on the registration portal by Dennis from UNEP. And he also talked about, that there's a huge difference in the voluntary carbon market in Article 6. And we thought this is a really good point, and we do have a webinar planned that explains all of this. So please do stay tuned. I think this is going to be a very basic one, but a very necessary one for people who are developing their own carbon projects. All right, so if there are any other questions, please feel free to drop us an email. You can visit our website for more resources. We publish blogs all the time. We're also active on LinkedIn. You can, I'll put in the WhatsApp of our company as well if you want to book a direct consultation with us. And thank you so much for joining us today. It really means a lot that you took out time from your busy schedules for this webinar.
Thank you, everyone.
I've put in the WhatsApp number in the chat. Thank you so much again, everybody, for joining us. Until we see you in the next webinar. Please stay tuned. Bye bye.